Okay, so have you ever been in that situation where you're just not sure if someone is, feeling it, like romantically?
Oh, yeah, for sure. It can be so confusing trying to read those early signals.
Right, and that's what made this video you sent in, 5 signs she's not into you, so fascinating. It's like, are there actually universal clues we can look for?
Well, what I found interesting is how the video starts off. It's all about communication, but not just any communication. It's about consistent effort.
Yeah, I noticed that too. Like, why is that so crucial?
I think it's about, how we invest our energy. When someone is truly interested, they genuinely want to connect on a deeper level. It's not even a conscious thing. They just naturally gravitate toward you.
That makes total sense. It's almost like they can't HLLP but reach out because they're actually like excited to learn more.
Yeah, exactly. They want to share more about themselves, hear more about you. It's that reciprocal energy.
Right, right. But what about those situations where it feels like someone is only reaching out when they like need something?
Oh, yeah. The video actually calls those kinds of interactions transactional, and it's definitely something to watch out for. But sometimes, people are just really bad at communicating their needs directly.
So it might not always be like a malicious thing.
Not necessarily, no, but it does highlight a potential communication gap for sure.
Interesting. So even if it's not intentionally manipulative, that pattern of only reaching out when they need a favor could still point to some deeper issues.
Exactly. Like, are they truly interested in you or just what you can offer them? It makes you think about the foundation of that connection.
Right, right. That makes a lot of sense. Okay, so speaking of patterns, the video also talks about flakiness, UGH. We've all been there.
Yeah, that last-minute cancellation is the worst.
But is it always a sign of disinterest, or are there like legitimate reasons someone might flake out?
It's a tricky one, for sure. Life does happen. Sometimes emergencies pop up and plans change. But the video makes a good point about the difference between the occasional mishap and a consistent pattern of bailing.
Yeah, I think it's that consistency that really stings. It's like, are you even excited about this? Am I just an afterthought?
The video talks about paying attention to the lead up to those canceled plans. Was there genuine excitement? Did they seem invested in making it happen?
Right. Or was it more like, oh yeah, I guess we're supposed to do something? Like that lack of enthusiasm is kind of telling.
And it's not about being a stickler for schedules. It's more about feeling like a priority.
That is so true. It's about that feeling of, do you actually want to spend time with me? Or is it more of a maybe if nothing better comes up kind of thing?
Right. And sometimes those are tough pills to swallow.
Yeah.
But I think hearing it straight can be more helpful than holding on to false hope.
I agree. It's about taking that information and using it to make empowered choices about how you want to spend your time and energy.
Okay, so we've talked about communication, flakiness.
Yeah.
What else is on the list of potential red flags?
This one is maybe a little more subtle. The video brings up the role of physical touch.
Oh, interesting. Like what kind of touch? I'm not talking about anything inappropriate, but like those little gestures that can speak volumes about someone's comfort level,
Yeah.
and attraction.
Okay, got it. So like a brush of the hands, a playful nudge, that sort of thing.
Exactly. It taps into the idea of wanting to be physically close to someone,
Yeah.
to share warmth, that connection. The video even mentions the difference between a genuine hug and one that's like a polite pat on the back.
Wow. It's like learning a whole new language, but instead of words, it's those tiny little physical cues.
Right. And that's why it could be so hard to decipher sometimes.
So how do you know if those subtle touches are actually meaningful? Could it just be that someone is naturally more touchy-feely?
That's a great point. The video suggests paying attention to who initiates the touch. Do they reach for your hand when they laugh? Lean in while talking. It's about actively seeking out that connection.
So if someone is like constantly in my personal bubble, it's a good sign, right?
Well, not necessarily. Everyone has different comfort levels, right? The key is looking for genuine, respectful gestures. It should feel good for both people.
Gotcha. So it's not just a random high five, it's that lingering touch that makes you think, what was that about?
Exactly. It's about the spark, that unspoken connection that can be even more powerful than words. But speaking of words, there's one phrase the video warns us about. It's a tough one.
Oh no, I think I know where this is going. The dreaded friend zone. Is there any escaping that?
The video is pretty blunt. Being called just a friend is often a gentle letdown. But it does raise an interesting question. Is it always about lack of attraction, or could it be, about mismatched expectations, or maybe even fear of ruining a good friendship?
Oh, that's a good point. So maybe sometimes it's not that someone doesn't find you attractive, they're just prioritizing the friendship.
Exactly. And that raises a bigger question. If someone explicitly puts you in that friend zone, is it ever worth trying to change their mind?
Oof, that's a tough one. Makes you think about how much energy we put into trying to convince someone to feel differently, when maybe the answer is right there.
Right. It's about respecting their boundaries.
Yeah.
And your own energy. Seeing that label not as rejection, but valuable information. It might not be the outcome you wanted, but at least you can move forward with clarity.
Okay, I'm digging this perspective shift. So instead of dwelling on what could have been, it's about focusing on those opportunities where that spark is already there, on both sides.
Exactly. And that brings us to the fifth and final sign the video talks about. This one can trigger a lot of insecurity, her talking to other guys.
Ugh, yeah, that can be a tough one to deal with, especially if you're, putting in effort and hoping for something more.
The video emphasizes the importance of attention and focus. If someone is truly into you, romantically, that attention will be directed towards you. They won't be constantly bringing up other guys or seeking advice about someone else they're crushing on.
So it's less about feeling threatened and more about noticing where their energy is going. Like, are they more excited to talk about you? Or does their face light up when someone else's name comes out? Ouch, yeah, that one stings a bit.
It's not about playing detective, but it is about trusting your gut. If their actions are sending mixed signals, maybe it's time to step back and see if this is the kind of connection you really want.
It's about recognizing those patterns and then, focusing on those connections that feel safe and secure and genuinely reciprocal.
Right. Healthy relationships are built on transparency and mutual respect. If someone is playing games, trying to manipulate your feelings or make you feel insecure, that's a huge red flag.
So instead of getting caught up in all that drama, it's about knowing your worth and not settling for anything less.
Yes. And it's not about winning someone's attention. It's about recognizing those connections where the energy just flows naturally,
Yeah.
from both sides.
We've covered a lot of ground here. Communication, flakiness, touch, the dreaded friend zone, and all the complexities of talking about other guys. It feels like we've just scratched the surface, though.
We definitely have. There's so much more to unpack here.
Is there anything else the video highlights that we should be aware of? Anything we missed?
It's funny. When I think about all these signs, they're not just about romantic interest. It's like they apply to A&Y relationship.
Oh, 100%. We get so focused on the romantic stuff, but these patterns show up everywhere, right? Friendships, work, even family sometimes.
Right. Think about it. That flaky friend who's always bailing, or that coworker who takes credit for your ideas.
Oh my gosh, yes. It's like this video gave us a decoder ring for all human behavior, not just dating.
Exactly. It's about understanding those fundamental dynamics. But okay, let's say you DO spot some of these signs with someone you're, interested in. What then?
Yeah, that's the big question. Do you confront them? Play it cool? Run for the hills? What's the move?
I think the video's smart to avoid giving specific advice because every situation is so different,
Yeah, sometimes a direct conversation is helpful, but sometimes it just makes things weird.
Exactly. The takeaway for me is that you don't OWE anyone an explanation for your feelings. If you're getting those red flags, feeling unsure, you have every right to step back. Protect yourself.
I love that. You're not obligated to pursue every potential connection, especially if it's not feeling good.
Right. But what about those times when you do want to salvage things? Is there a way to, address those red flags without it becoming a huge fight?
That's the tricky part.
The video doesn't get into specifics, but I think it's all about how you frame things, coming from an I feel place instead of you did.
So instead of you always flake on me, it's more like, hey, I feel a little bummed when our plans change.
Exactly. It shifts the focus. It's not blame, it's your own experience. And sometimes that's enough to shift the dynamic.
But what if they're just clueless or defensive?
That's where boundaries are so important. The video might not explicitly say it, but respecting your own WN limits is crucial. If they're constantly dismissing your feelings.
Or not even acknowledging their own behavior.
Right. That's a sign maybe this connection isn't actually serving you.
It's like a test, almost. If you express your needs and they're not receptive, well, that tells you something.
And sometimes, as tough as it is, the most loving thing you can do for yourself is to walk away, even if it hurts in the moment.
Oof, yeah. Those This is for the best moments are never easy.
but they make space for something better when one door closes.
Another one opens.
I know, cliche, but true. Okay, so we've talked about recognizing the red flags, even addressing them. But is there anything else we can learn from this video beyond just the dating scene, I mean?
That's what I find so fascinating. These 5 signs, they're about way more than just romance. They're about human nature.
Whoa, when you put it like that. Communication, boundaries, recognizing when someone isn't reciprocating, that's all L relationships. Right. And it highlights how important self-awareness is. Our WE being the flaky friend. Our WE dismissing someone else's feelings. It makes you think.
It's not just about them, it's about us too, how we show up.
Exactly. And it asks some tough questions. Are we settling? Holding on to connections that drain us?
Man, this is deep. It's about recognizing our worth in every area of life. But how do we know if we're settling? What other red flags should we be looking out for?
Great question. One thing that comes to mind is inconsistency. The video touches on this with flakiness, but it's bigger than that. When someone's words and actions don't match up.
You mean like when they say they want to hang out, but then there's always an excuse?
Yes. All talk, no action.
Right.
Or they shower you with compliments, but then completely ignore your boundaries.
That's like, which one is the real them? Makes you question everything.
Right. And another one, this is big, is lack of empathy. The video talks about feeling unimportant when someone flakes, but it goes deeper. If they dismiss your feelings, minimize your experiences.
Or don't offer support when you're struggling.
That's a sign they might not be prioritizing your well-being.
That's such a good point. Feeling seen and heard, it's crucial. If that's missing, there's this disconnect.
And you know, while we're on red flags, negativity. If someone is constantly complaining, bringing that dark cloud into every interaction.
Oh my gosh, yes. It's like they suck the joy out of everything. And it's contagious, isn't it?
Totally. It's not about ignoring reality. It's about choosing who you surround yourself with.
Yeah.
People who uplift you, inspire you.
So it's not just about avoiding the negative. It's about actively seeking out those connections that make you feel good.
Exactly. And that brings us back to the heart of it all. Recognizing your worth. Not settling for less than you deserve. In any dory relationship.
Wow. This video has given us a whole new way to look at relationships, not just romantic ones, but all of them. We're learning how to create healthier connections across the board.
Right. It's about empowering yourself. But I have to ask, what about when someone is genuinely interested, but they're just terrible at showing it? How do we avoid pushing those people away accidentally?
It's a good question, and you're so right. It's a tough balance. Because sometimes those signals are really subtle, or even like totally opposite of what we'd expect from someone who's interested.
Right, and I think that's where getting to know someone over time comes in. Those first few interactions might be confusing, but if they keep showing up, putting in the effort, even if it's kind of clumsy, maybe that's a sign they're trying.
And that's where a little bit of communication goes a long way. If something feels off, instead of just assuming the worst, maybe ask a question or two.
So like instead of thinking they're not into me because they're not texting back right away, I could just say something like, hey, I love chatting, but I'm never sure when's a good time to reach out. What works best for you?
Exactly. It's about finding that balance between overthinking everything and ignoring those gut feelings completely. Right. It's tricky. Okay, so we've talked a lot about those not interested signs. What about the flip side? What are some signs that someone I just actually into you, besides the obvious stuff?
I'm so glad you asked that. It's easy to focus on the negative, but those positive signs are just as important. One thing I always look for is consistency, not just in how often they communicate, but like their actions overall.
So it's not just about texting back quickly, it's about following through on what they say, showing up when they say they will, actually making you a priority.
Exactly. And it's the quality of that time too. Are they truly interested in what you have to say? Do they make an effort to learn about your hobbies, what you're passionate about?
It's about feeling truly seen, not just tolerated. And I feel like that's true for any relationship, not just romantic ones.
Oh, absolutely. And another sign that often gets missed is how someone makes you feel. Do they make you laugh? Do you feel comfortable being yourself around them?
Oh my gosh, yes. Those are the best signs. It's that feeling of lightness, like you can just be yourself completely. And honestly, that kind of connection is priceless, whether it turns into a romance or not.
So well said. And I think that's a perfect place to wrap things up. We've been decoding all these signals, but ultimately it comes down to trusting yourself.
Yeah.
And recognizing those connections that just feel good.
So true. It's not a set of rules, it's about tuning into your own intuition and choosing to be around those people who lift you up.
And sometimes that means letting go of connections that aren't serving us anymore. Even if it's hard, it's about making space for something new.
And maybe those not interested signs are actually like a little nudge from the universe to redirect our energy towards something even better.
Exactly. Redirection, not rejection.
I love that. Rejection is redirection. We should put that on a t-shirt. Okay, but seriously, I think we've covered so much today, from those subtle signs of disinterest to like the qualities that make for truly amazing relationships.
And we talked about communication, self-awareness, respecting those boundaries. So much good stuff.
It's been an amazing deep dive, and I'm so grateful for your insights.
It's been such a pleasure.
Now, I know our listeners are probably full of thoughts and stories of their own, so tell us, what are your go-to red flags or even those green flags? Have you ever had to, like, redirect your energy away from someone? Share in the comments, and let's keep this conversation going.
You are not alone in this. We're all figuring it out together.
That's what makes this community so amazing. So keep your hearts open, keep exploring, and keep trusting yourselves. Until next time.